Guys, let's talk a little about something
Yeah,
more
you know,
serious.
over the weekend, there was a lot of delays, a lot of concerts interrupted by the weather, especially Country Thunder, a big festival up there in Canada. And look at the scene. I mean, look, you can see the lightning billowing. We take you back, though, to what happened in August 2011, Jim. That was when a tragic stage collapse happened.
Yeah, this pretty much set the guidelines here for what is coming up with our next interview here. You may remember the Indiana State Fair back in 2000, a large gust of wind here caused the stage to crumble in a matter of minutes. The incident killed 7 people and injured dozens.
So from this terrible situation, the Event Safety Alliance organization was formed. Joining us now is the group's founder and chairman, Jim Digby. Jim, good morning. So good to talk to you about this. How has that stage collapse changed safety guidelines for outdoor concerts?
Well, it really was the catalyst for us to learn what we did not know. You know, collectively as an industry, we didn't know enough with respect to our safety needs in the face of severe weather, and it became the catalyst that caused what is now what are now actionable plans with weather. We now know where to get our weather information from more effectively. We as an industry have stepped up and addressed that cause.
So, Jim, we got about 30 seconds here, and we're going to hold you over the break.
Sure.
You know, what is the? Give me the 3 basic things that you're looking at with the weather that determine that action plan.
Speed of approach, how long it takes to evacuate the audience. Does the weather have lightning in it? Does it have threatening winds in it?
Yeah. And so we'll talk more about details, too, because I'm curious how they work with all the venues overall, right? And so we'll talk about that in just a few seconds after this break, I should say, because this is a topic that, you know, over the weekend, Florida Georgia Line, or was the last weekend, Florida Georgia Line concert, people evacuated and they left, and then they actually put the show on later.
There's a lot more strict guidelines now than there used to be. Stick around, we'll be right back.
We're talking about planning for bad weather during outdoor concerts and events. And we're talking with Jim Digby, who is a founder and chairman of the Event Safety Alliance. And Jim, we were talking about, and you just mentioned sort of the 3 things you look for in terms of determining if there's going to be a weather risk. How do you communicate that, both with the tour group, but also with the people attending?
Right.
Well, it's now become industry standard for each of the stakeholders to utilize a weather trigger chart. So it's more or less a risk assessment than an action plan at the same time. We identify those things that are exposed to weather and may cause harm as a result of weather. And we identify what the triggers are, what the weather triggers are that would cause them to cause harm. And we create an action plan around those things. So for instance, if lightning is approaching and lightning is within 8 miles of the venue, we recommend that we evacuate the audience out of the venue and take them to safe shelter. The good news is, because we now have these plans, it's not always a cancellation. Sometimes it's just a take safe shelter and return, in which case, you know, the show goes on, as you mentioned about, I think, Florida Georgia Line recently.
It did go on. It started about
it started later.
Yeah,
right.
It started later.
So, Jim, let's talk a little bit about, you know, you can get people out of harm's way. This is the perfect execution here, but you can't just clear a stage from all the equipment. There's a lot of expensive equipment out there. How do you protect gear and things like that from getting damaged?
Agreed. Well, I think we would all agree industry-wide that the gear is replaceable. Yeah, that's
Correct.
the least of our worries at the end of the day. We care about the people and the human lives who are working and who are attending these shows. We do take measures to safe the gear, so it's more than likely to come back working again. For instance, the audio system or the video system, we would bring that to the floor or fly that to the ceiling or secure it to a wall so that it doesn't get damaged when the storm passes through. But it's really not our first priority. Our first priority is human life.
Right.
Is this required before a venue has either, you know, a big festival or a tour in place?
Unfortunately, it's not required. It's a best practice or a reasonable practice, as the lawyers would have us say. The insurance companies are helping to support the use of these things by looking for them prior to writing policy. You know, a good insurer and a good event producer are going to want to see demonstrable actions in place or standards in place, protocols in place to take care of the audience when bad weather comes.
So let's talk about that, Jim. When you say seek shelter, if we're going to pause the concert or have it happen later after the weather clears, are there places that you're telling the audience to go to take cover?
Well, you know, it's not the artist's role in that instance. It's typically the venue's role in that instance. And one of the complicating factors is every venue is different. and every situation is different in these cases. Sometimes the car parks are long ways away and they're not close at all. Sometimes some of these venues are green fields where there really isn't much of a safe shelter. So that's part of creating this plan: is what is safe shelter? How long does it take to get there? Which informs when we notify the audience it's time to go. It is really a hit or miss. It's the science around weather is fantastic these days. We really know that if something's a threat, it's a real threat as opposed to earlier technologies. Now the challenge is, how do we action the fact that that threat is coming, and where do we get people to? And it's different in every venue.
Yeah.
So rule number one is make sure the audience knows to protect themselves and where their safe shelter is.
Jim Digby, founder and chairman of the Event Safety Alliance, thank you so much. I'm so glad this organization exists. I go to lots of outdoor shows, and I worry about the weather, Jim, as I know you do too, for the safety, and so the show can go on.